Your ears do not deceive you. You have just entered the Cryptid Creator Corner brought to you by your friends at Comic Book Yeti. So without further ado, let's get on to the interview.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Cryptid Creator Corner. I'm Byron O'Neill, your host for our Comics Creator Chat. Today, I'm joined by Risen. We can't say Rising, although Risen sounds quite biblical. Eisner Award nominated indie comics writer and filmmaker. His breakout success story, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, is back with another installment with everyone's favorite murder bear, Samantha, with Rite of Spring, oddly releasing in the summer. So it is my pleasure to introduce the scribe of slashers, the mangler of the mundane, the urger of unlawful ursine urges. That one was a reach, but I really want to fade it in there. Patrick Horvath, welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you on.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the wonderful intro.
Yeah, I was a former production assistant for WCW Wrestling way back in what feels another lifetime. So you got to have a proper intro. Mr. Fuji taught me that.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the title, Rite of Spring. I associate that with the pagan Ostura ritual on the spring equinox, which is, when simplified, just represents awakening, rebirth, renewal, or to use a bear's experience, the end of hibernation. So after the success of Beneath the Trees and given a little time to think, you decided to fast forward 8 years. So walk me through the middle process of trying to build upon the formula of this very unique concept.
I initially had the ideas for what the follow-up would be by the time I finished like issue 3, I think, of that first run of Beneath the Trees. And it very specifically was dealing with I really enjoyed issue 3 because it was starting to show consequences, impact in a community. We were at the funeral for Martin the goat. You're seeing grief play out amongst, characters. Like, we're showing that this is a world that deals with this stuff, right? For Samantha, she sort of checks, like, she knows this intellectually, and she's sort of fascinated by it, but she has no idea of like what that is. But still fascinated, probably because she can't really make that emotional connection. Anyway, and all that stuff was sort of going around in my head, and I was like, it'd be interesting would be for her to like have to deal with some sort of, repercussion of a murder that was like further in the future. And it was essentially like having redefined someone's existential being as, an obsession to find a loved one that essentially disappeared, and how that would change a character, and for Samantha to be sort of faced with that, and so that was sort of where it all came from. So by the time even like the first issue came out, Beneath the Trees, like I'd already had an idea because I was like 4 issues in at that point production wise, and so IDW, like the first issue came out and it was surprisingly like successful. And it was picking up steam, and they were like, "Do you want to do more? We would like to do more with you." And I was like, "Yes." I was like, "You have any ideas?" I was like, "I do have an idea." And so that's kind of how it came together. And the Rite of Spring came to me just in obviously the Stravinsky connection.
Yes.
And the idea of sacrifice, and the bears are involved, and there's hibernation, like you mentioned, like a lot of that sort of all came together, and that's how Rite of Spring came to me. And there's more thematic sacrifice connection that I don't want to spoil, but it ties in. It ties in. And yeah, so that was kind of what was all sort of rolling around in my head.
Well, I know you've done some other comics work, but for all intents and purposes, on the big stage, sophomore albums are notoriously challenging. Was there any trepidation when you were kind of coming through this? I mean, you said you already had the idea halfway through basically the first one. Is there performance anxiety associated with kind of how do we do this again?
Definitely. I feel like there was a lot of if I felt it's like a combination of like anxiety, imposter syndrome, the worry that like I just got lucky, And I
Sure.
don't know what it was that honestly, because I can't really put my finger on why the first one resonated so well with people other than I was just following my inspiration, right? And so
Yeah.
the anxiety for me at the beginning of plotting out this second arc was that I was afraid I would just fall into a recipe of what did work the first time around,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
then you would kind of feel like you were retreading. Even if it was, like, new plot points, but you were doing too similar a thing, like, I that was my concern, and it wasn't until I honestly just, like, sunk my claws into the character of Monica, who's the new big character with the second arc, that I was like, "Oh, I you know what?" As soon as I put my head in her head, like, I kind of realized, like, where this could go. We gave her she has, as you see in, like, issue 1, she has narration, like, we're with her. And so at that point, I kinda let everything go and then really leaned into just whatever weird thing I was feeling, like, that was the only sort of, true north for me as I was putting it together. And then in regards
Okay.
to what happened, like, I am kind of a formalist nerd in terms of having echoes that show up, and you can see that in the first arc even, like, I just or even
Yeah.
within issues within the first arc, like, I love those callbacks. If there's, like, added meaning or there's a cumulative element to it that makes it interesting or changes the meaning, whatever, and so that definitely is in play, but, in regards to the plotting of it all, like, it's very different,
Yeah.
and we'll see how that's received, I don't know. But it's yeah, I for sure had a lot of trepidation at the beginning.
Yeah, I really I mean, if my read is any indication of how everybody else is gonna respond, you're in great shape because
Oh, I
it was
appreciate
this
that.
yeah, I mean, it was a really dramatic shift that honestly I didn't anticipate. With respect to tone, and
Yeah,
if we were murder in Mayberry, now we're kind of killer in Queens. So it's
sure.
a stark contrast that reflected the change in our own ideals and this transition of disillusionment, that
Yeah.
seeped into the 80s culture in America, which seems sadly applicable to 2025. But what made you wanna kinda make that shift tonally? I mean, aside from, I don't wanna do the same thing again.
I it just felt like it just the story felt like that's what it needed to be because of
Okay.
the focus on a character that had been 8 years into a completely fruitless search. That was
Yeah.
tied into the missing loved one who, like, who just is like they're dead essentially in their mind, probably at this point in absentia, which is like one of the hardest things to sort of deal with. Like they're just gone. And you have to assume they're probably dead. I mean, it's like one of the hardest things is there's no processing because there's no closure necessarily. And so to have that sort of mindset and then to put it in the thick of the 90s, which to me, um, it felt really interesting because of it was such a change in regards to, like, the internet coming out, having, like and this world is super similar to our world, right? Like, if you actually wanna
Yeah.
be a nerd about it, if you look at the calendar is misaligned with our calendar by, like, 1 day. And so as a
Okay.
result, like, it kind of allowed now we have animal people, but it's very similar to the world
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have. And so, like, we have, like, globalization happening. We have, like, suburban development. We have, like, big box stores coming that are driving out, customers from small mom and pop hardware stores, let's say. And then you have,
Yeah.
all these elements that are kind of happening. The world's shrinking. Like, you can feel like there's just a change happening, especially if you're paying attention. And Samantha's always paying attention. So, like, that was why, I kind of went with this shift in the tone. Like, it felt like the world was sort of like, we can't pretend not to pay attention to it anymore.
Yeah, it's one of the things that just immediately my buy-in was sucked in with that coming from a theatrical background. It's the set pieces, it's the dressing that kind of really
Sure.
set the stage. And so cities are kind of an interesting way to explore identity and, this contrast between rural and urban that we've got going on. Cities can have a vibe, right?
Mhm.
And when they're not, DC does this where I think really, really well, where when you don't attach it to an actual physical place, like I'm thinking Gotham or Metropolis or something like that, they can take on these lives of their own. And Woodbrook, you had a very defined sense of self that you established in the first arc. Do you like developing place as a character in your work? Kind of, how do you use that?
Yeah, I think that's super important to sort of have the context, 'cause none of this stuff happens in a vacuum. It feels like it would be disingenuous to have it happen in a vacuum, and because there's
Yeah.
always a changing, like, the first arc was very much like a loss of innocence, it felt like, for Woodbrook, and so that had to be such a strong part of it, and then to have this city be the place to do, like, the murdering was very like, a very specific thing that was necessary for that dichotomy of, like, the how Samantha lived her life, and so to continue it, it felt like that needed to be there, but now it's like when we come back to Woodbrook, like, we're gonna see that, it's different, but it's still the same, but it sort of feels like I mean, without spoiling anything, there's definitely a vibe of the small town in the '90s when you had, like, a lot of that, budgets were shrinking, like industry was going away, and things were just changing, but we were somehow more aware of more of the world than we were before.
Yeah. Yeah. The world shrinks, but maybe not in such a good way.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, don't take this as a criticism. This is more of a curiosity. But Rite of Spring for me did not pull at those nostalgia strings really at all. It delved into this darker recess, if listeners can believe that, of isolation and compulsion and grief. And I, of course, mentally attached that to the changes that were happening in society at that time. And it was a neat trick in the first art using anthropomorphic animals. And this though has become this real cat and mouse, bear and duck, I guess, if you will, crime drama with like longitudinal character development, right? We
Yeah.
thought we knew how diabolical Samantha was. And then she said, "Hold my beer."
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's it just kind of, I don't know, it's weird because the nostalgia part was obviously a big hook in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
felt, I guess, like I mentioned, I mean, it's sort of disingenuous not to carry this thing out, but I mean, like, that's the entry point, you know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
like a clean slate and we come back to it and we're still all, like, living in Busy Town from Richard Scarry, like, it's like Busy Town's changed, you know? It's different now. And there's still that, I'm not gonna say, like, it's completely vanished, but it is definitely like, the characters that we'll see throughout, like, you're definitely gonna revisit characters that you saw from the first arc, and they've changed. Like, they've had the ones that survived had that trauma in some fashion
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
And so, it's all part it's all part of that.
Yeah. You've alluded to the people growing up. We're
Yeah.
10 years forward. So now you have some of the kids who are dealing with that trauma who are now teenagers and
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, it's also quite topical to be peeling back the layers of the stranger among us narrative in 2025 that feels very now. Is your writing process one of kind of channeling your own emotions and dealing with what's in front of us at this moment in time, or do you follow the characters as they just dictate you go?
It's impossible for me to divorce, like, whatever I'm dealing with, I guess, in my life, in the world as I see it. I mean, it's that's how I love working with art, so that I like to channel all that stuff, into it. I'm
Yeah.
also, like, I'm, like, in my mid-40s right now, so, like, I was very much a child of the '80s and in my teens in the '90s, so, like, to me, it's very fascinating to plot where we're at right now, in a socio-political sense from those, like, 45 years. And so, it's all connected. Like, I feel like it's all very connected, and it's very much there's a through line to it all. And it felt like this would I just naturally felt like exploring some of that within this. Or it's not even like I'm exploring necessarily, but, like, it's part of it, right? It's part of the world.
Yeah.
And it felt like to completely keep that out of it didn't feel, like it was being, I don't know if we're talking about anthropomorphic animals, but it didn't feel like it was truthful in the sense of like this story that we're telling,
Yeah.
because it is like it's all part of it, and it informs it. And I feel like to not, I mean, I don't want to like beat anybody over the head with it, but it's like it's still something to consider, right? I think a lot of
Yeah.
the biggest problem is not considering it, right? Just kind of ignoring all this stuff and then wondering why everything's weird, and scary and whatever. And I feel like it's worth it to sort of have this life examined.
Yeah. I mean, the best statement that you could really get people to kind of absorb thing is to look in sort of these dystopian, slightly future dystopian comedies where you taking an absolutely absurd premise and then using what's happening today and commenting about it. I mean, I don't know how many times I keep coming back to Idiocracy lately and how
Sure.
prescient that was and how much I wish it was not.
I know.
It's
I
just
know. It's the terror
I
to
say,
me
how
is
did he
like,
do that?
how much closer are we gonna get? And every time you're like, oh, we're past the point of like, oh, that's like mildly amusing how that's like sort of like Idiocracy. More and more, it's just kind of like, this is like way too close to Idiocracy, everybody. Like, it's not funny anymore. Like, we need to stop.
Right.
Like, we need to like pump the brakes. Everybody's getting dumb. Like, we need to please stop. Like,
Yeah. I'm waiting for somebody to come out with the real Brondo drink, though. I mean, somebody needs to do that.
we're just watering
They'll
crops
make
with
a
electrolytes.
mint. Uh, well, one of the things that I really, really enjoy about your approach visually is how you do a death scene. Like modern entertainment has a John Wick murder ballet problem to me. Don't get me wrong. I like the John Wick franchise, but we've embraced this wholeheartedly embraced this choreographed of death or violence to the point where it no longer feels real. And at one point in my life, I wanted to be a coroner, and I did internships at the
Oh, right
body
on.
farm at the University of Tennessee. Are you familiar with the body farm then?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool, cool. Like most people don't even have an idea
I've read the
of what.
book, and I've definitely at first it was like podcast through the podcast episode through the podcast Criminal, and then
Yeah.
I first heard about the Body Farm, and then I read the book about the Body Farm, because it was like totally fascinating.
Yeah, let me tell you, is a wild place to spend 2 summers
Oh
for
my
sure.
gosh, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. But while I was there, I developed this appreciation for a very, like, matter-of-fact coldness of death that is short and
Sure.
punctuated with a period, and we don't have these, like, rife run-on sentences that are ubiquitous in, like, modern dramas in our entertainment. Have you ever seen Valhalla Rising?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's sort of my go-to in terms of something that really, really speaks to me in that way. It's one of my favorite movies,
Sure.
but the brutality in that just feels so tangible.
It
It's
felt,
violence
it's
driven by.
interesting. It's interesting too because I also felt like did you ever see Green Room?
Yeah.
Also felt like that violence was like very grounded in sort of a similar way in terms of it happens, and it's very brutal and traumatic, but it's not like there's nothing gratuitous about it, and it's also like not cool. Like
Yeah.
it's just like, which is it should not be cool. Same like, in regards to like straw, like the original Straw Dogs or something. Like I just, there should be nothing cool about the violence. Like it shouldn't be neat, necessarily. Like I'm
Right.
definitely trying to do something. And I have a lot of problem with like making like righteous violence. Like I feel like righteous violence is very problematic. And it's something that like, it's should be like considered. Like every time you're depicting violence, like should be considered. And so I definitely like don't want to have, I don't know, some like over the top choreographed like fight or whatever it is that's doing this thing. It's definitely, yeah, I mean, it's all for impact and dramatic impact, obviously,
Sure.
but I'm always, it's always something I'm considering.
Is that why you approached it in that way? Something that is more
Oh
subtle
yeah.
and more matter of fact and.
Like, I definitely a lot of it's in tableau. Like, it's just you reveal by nature of the comics, like, it's, you're sort of always kind of revealing, like, the shot or whatever, but it's definitely, like, I didn't want to have too much of it, like, happening in the panel.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted that to be pretty limited, and then, until it was, like, absolutely necessary. Uh, and a lot of it is just sort of like the reveal of what happened.
Do you approach that in your other work? I know you have a film background. That's your kind of first creative language. So
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely been, something that, I've been, like, thinking about how to approach for pretty much all my creative life, but definitely, like,
okay.
especially, like, maybe not with the first film that we did called it was called Diner, but for sure, Entrance and, even, like, the stuff in, Southbound, it's still genre and it's still fun in some regards, like the films itself, but, like, the violence that shows up, like, it is more like I definitely gravitate more towards that, like, Valhalla Rising or Green Room
Sure.
sort of, like, matter-of-fact depiction. I feel like it's just, I don't know why. It just feels like more, responsible in a weird way. I don't know.
well, we have anthropomorphic murder animals. Okay, I get what you're putting down, Patrick. Okay, okay, we'll go with that. I gotta admit, I saw just about everything you can imagine. I was a vat guy at the body
Oh
farm,
my
so
gosh,
that
okay.
was my job. That was my job, was taking off the tops and stirring around the vats, and we had different salinity contents that had to be tested, body decompositions, all that.
Yeah. Ay, ay,
But
ay.
vivisection via paint can is a new one as a disposal method for me. And now I have to go back and hopefully not explain to my son why can paint cans break down tissue is in the Google search now the other
Yeah, does
night.
it you know what? To be totally frank, that was the complete, like, shooting from the hip of, like, this might be, like, an interesting way to, like, mask decomp and, like, mask, like, detection from, like,
Yeah.
dogs or whatever, but I felt like, for some reason, I was like, "Well, if we cover them in latex paint, like, and then seal it, like, that might be pretty effective."
Well, my research tells me that it was effective at the time period, certainly of the first arc. I'd have to go back and get real technical because it was hydrocarbon-based solvents actually will break tissue down.
Oh, okay.
So you can get away with it up until a point probably.
Mm. Well, that's alright. I'm sure I should have looked it up, but I was just, like, so, like, "I don't know, this would be cool." Like, if
Um,
there was enough, like, napkin logic, I was, like, sort of thinking of it all, but I was like, "I'll just run with
oh,
it."
yeah. Yeah. Well, if you run out of stuff, just use Diet Coke. I don't know if you know about this one, but, so taxidermists will use Diet Coke to basically take tissue off bone.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
there you go.
yeah. It's, kind of shocking how effective it is at even, like, taking off corrosion and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, super simple, you can find it anywhere. Now that we've totally convinced everybody that's listening that Byron is a
I feel
murderer.
like Diet Coke in the serial killer, genre is, like, waiting to happen. If nobody jumps on this, I might do this, and I don't know when. I'm sure I'm
There you
gonna do
go.
another serial killer story at some point.
Sponsorship. Oh, that's such a good statement. Oh, you've gotta have a sponsored serial killer with Diet Coke. I mean, The Running Man is back, so, I mean, good God.
Yeah.
Ugh, ugh. Anyway, it's haunting to watch Samantha work, and that's where the fascination for me anyway lies in the series because we cannot look away from it. It's like a car wreck. Like, everybody will do it, and I really do think that's why this series was such a hit, is because it just sucks you in that, primal lizard brain of just, "Oh, I've gotta witness this horror." I don't
Sure.
know why we do it, but
I mean, it's the same, I have a feeling that it's like well, with this too, I feel like there was a compelling element of it tapping into that nostalgia of, like, the children's book characters, and then you're wondering, like, how far is this gonna go? And then it also is just like the Venn diagram includes like true crime fans and people that are interested in that. And so it's like all that stuff. I feel like it's like it is the train wreck. It is also like the weird revisiting our own childhoods.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about Sam, because I know you've probably told this story 1,000 times, but not to me. So where did she come from, actually?
So I did I had started a practice of every morning to draw, like first thing in the morning with my coffee.
Okay.
And for years and years. Maybe I really started in like 2010. And then by like 2017, I'd done a doodle in the morning that was like, it was an ink and watercolor thing. And it was a anthropomorphic bear walking in like a little field or whatever with a bloody axe on their shoulder. It wasn't even watercolor. It was like, I think I just inked it and then I like maybe colored it in Photoshop or something. But I was like, oh, that's interesting. What if there was like a serial killer in Busytown? And that was kind of my thought. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, it'd be interesting if there was like two serial killers in Town, and the other one was giving this bear problems. And then I had immediately thought of that children's song, Teddy Bear's Picnic, which is really old and whatever. But
Okay.
there was a children's album compilation from the 90s that I remember, because way back when we used to have TV commercials and they would have like these like compilation albums that would just be released by whomever. And it would be like, if you saw the commercials enough, like if you're a kid watching TV, you'd see these things all the time. One of the
Yeah.
songs on the list was Teddy Bear's Picnic, and it was Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. They hide and seek as long as they please, yada yada. So like I was like, but
Okay.
what do they do beneath the trees that nobody sees? I'd always thought it was like, in my mind, especially being like a cynical teenager, I was like, what are they doing that nobody. And so and then anyway, so I flash forward and now I'm in my 30s or whatever, and I'm just kind of like, this is it. This is Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. This is what they do. And so
Okay.
that's just kind of how it all happened. So like it had to stay a bear because of the Teddy Bear's Picnic reference. Like it all just sort of kept building, pretty quick, like just as that idea. And then I just wrote the idea down in a file where I keep all my ideas. And then when I had a chance to pitch something to IDW in 2021, I was like, how about this one? And I had a couple more too, but they were immediately like, we want to see everything on this one. I was like, okay.
You have some sick editors, because they just greenlit the longest title ever.
Yeah.
I cannot believe this.
Yeah.
That flew.
Yeah. They were, and nobody batted an eye to anything. Like and it's pretty dark. And all that stuff, as bleak as it gets, especially at the end of the first run, that was all in the outline that I sent. And they were, because I very much wanted to make sure they were cool with what I wanted to do with it.
Yeah.
And they were. And so it just kind of became this awesome place for me to just, all of the notes I got from editorial were just to make it better, just to strengthen stuff up and make it hit even harder. It was pretty cool. It was a really cool experience.
So she kills the duck in the original series.
Mhm.
So were you just stuck with the duck? Because I'm thinking of this transition essentially to Monica, and kind of
Yeah.
how the nucleus of her as a character. And
Mhm.
did you just have to get from A to B? Oh, she's, got to have a duck because here's the duck. And
Pretty much. Yeah. It felt like
okay.
strongest to do it that way. I guess, there's no
Okay.
like rules necessarily of like, because there's definitely cross species couples that we've already established. So like
Sure.
it's possible that it could be something else, but like it felt very much like it would just be strongest to keep it as a duck. But then and the other thing is funny because like in my mind, a lot of my interactions with ducks have to do with being in college, and I went to college at University of Iowa, it was just, it was a nice college town to go to, and I had a good time there. But I remember specifically there were a lot of ducks, especially down at the river that goes through campus. And you would always be like walking by ducks or whatever, and they'd always just seem like kind of pissed off, like or just like, "Quack, quack." You're like, okay, which I'm sure they don't want to deal with people
Yeah.
walking around. But in my mind, that sort of like level of like grumpiness was 100% like, well, what I was like, sort of at the base level of like Monica and
It
Donald.
is
I mean,
so
like all
weird.
ducks kind of seem upset, I guess.
They do, and now that you bring that up, I'm thinking in my head, you're looking at Sam and Monica, you have Bear and a duck, and I'm thinking of, okay, so this is supposed to sort of nostalgically appeal to all of us as kids, and I'm thinking of my own son when he was young, because he's really into animals, a lot of kids are, but we go to the zoo, and, there was no hesitation towards a bear. If he saw a bear behind glass or a big, it's like, oh,
Oh,
you go
yeah.
towards a bear. It's a swan, a duck, a goose or something. It's like, "Fuck that thing." Like, and he's
Yeah,
just
I
like,
don't know what
get
it is.
away
I mean,
from
the
it.
beak? I don't know. Like, the
Yeah,
bill?
yeah,
I feel like it's so funny to there's yeah, I mean, like, having geese, like, terrorizing people, I feel like, has become such a pop culture thing that there's definitely a thing to it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I'm curious in Rite of Spring, I don't wanna spill the beans as to why this is important in the story, but with respect to its influence on you anyway, the 1943 film Le Corbeau or The Raven was a French film. It was produced during the Nazi occupation of France and is an allegory of authoritarianism. So, we'll also note that that was actually a banned film as well. Again, feels very topical 2025. I know that's a deep cut as far as an Easter egg goes,
Yeah.
but you don't do anything I've come to expect just by happenstance. It's very, very calculated.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so can you elaborate on its inclusion without giving too much away?
I mean, it was just I think the idea of, like, a poison pen element to a storyline
Okay.
felt like a fun nod to have.
Okay.
I a lot of the illusions I'll do aren't necessarily one-to-ones, but are sort of thematically related, and I feel like, that was just a fun honestly, I was like when you see where that pops up, I was trying to figure out how to address that place, just from like in my mind, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but like I come from like you mentioned a film background, and so when I
Right.
put together comics, I very much have like all these different departments in my head. And so there's production design department, like, how are we gonna set dress this place, right? And so, like,
Yeah.
whenever I'm like, "What goes on the walls?" Like, "Who is this person?" You know what I mean? And that g I mean, and that's sort of what informed, like, the dyed hair of when I was putting together, um, Monica's apartment, for instance, like, it was trying to figure out, like, who this person is, you know what I mean? Well, who was she before she sorta got warped by this obsession of trying to just find her brother? And I was like, well, it was like almost mid-90s. She's in her 30s. So she came into her 20s like in the 80s, and I was like, okay, so she's probably like she seems kind of cool. So like, but utilitarian, like maybe she's like was into like the no wave thing, and maybe she was into like Susie and the Banshees type stuff, and then there was like, she probably like dyed her hair, but like she also isn't taking care of herself. And she smokes like a chimney. So like she let her hair grow out. And like it was just like all this stuff where I was like, and also, like, it was just really interesting to have something to play against, like, a before time. So now we have this after and this sort of, like, whatever. So all these
Yeah.
she's definitely got an edge to her, and it felt like all that stuff, when you start putting together these people's homes, like, it feels very important to have a richness to it that you because you're like, "We only got so many pages." To
Right.
like tell the story.
Exactly.
And you gotta tell as much character as you can in the details of like what they wear, why they wear what they wear, like all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but that's one of the I think the great hallmarks of your type of storytelling is the strength in filling out these little pieces of life that enrich it. Because so often in modern comics, we're dealing with page counts, and it's like, oh
Yeah.
no, you gotta fit and wedge
Oh,
everything in
yeah, yeah,
here,
yeah.
and
Which
if you can't pull
I'm
somebody in, blah blah blah.
I'm very into limitations for sure. Even in
Yeah,
filmmaking, I think it drives creativity and helps you be, sort of inventive. But it also like really forced me to just utilize whatever we can in the time that you have, because you're also like every detail is an extra couple minutes on the panel, and you're like when you're just trying to get the page out for the day, like it's a struggle. But it feels like that's if it's important, like I'll put in the time for sure.
yeah. I mean, a lot of people have described your work as sort of like Lynchian is the thing that, and then I think that's just a buzzword to describe something that might be a little strange lately. But
Yeah.
I've heard that dropped a lot, For me, that little nugget was the inclusion of the Bijou Theater in the first arc because I was an assistant technical director at a Bijou Theater that was in Knoxville, Tennessee. So,
Oh,
and
cool.
I've been at Yeah. I've been a technical director at multiple like Roadhouse for
Oh,
people who
very cool.
actually know what that is, theaters and stuff. So yeah, I locked into that. But yeah, I appreciate that. What's the story behind the Bijou?
Bijou we had in Iowa City. And it was
Okay.
not its own theater. It was it was called the Bijou. It was part of this. It was in the union, the student union, but it had
Yeah.
but that they would show like, cool indie stuff that was coming through for like a night or two. And their programming is always solid. I was in the film program at University of Iowa, so like we were definitely aware of like what was programmed at the Bijou.
Oh, that's cool. Nice little nod to alma mater then.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, out of all the various animals that you populate stories with, how do you go about choosing them? I mean, we went through sort of Samantha and Monica there, but like, fess up, Patrick, are there animals that you hate drawing?
No, I like drawing all of them. I pick most of it's like either picking depending on if it would be more amusing to have it be like going in with stereotype of what that animal's like and the personality type's like, or going playing against it.
Sure.
And so it's just kind of it's that, push and pull of like whether or not how I want to, like how's this going to play out? Who should this be? Like having Cherry Gherkins be a pig was very like pushy piggy to me. Like it felt like it was like she gets in at that trough and she gets what she wants. And I was like, yeah, that feels necessary. And versus like having somebody like, Nigel in the first arc be like very much at first like a meek sort of thing, like felt very fun to play with expectations. And so it was
Yeah.
it's definitely like it's everything's like I'm open to whatever. You know what I mean? In terms of animals that I like to draw, wouldn't like to draw, I feel like they're all like I have a much easier time drawing people.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've essentially become the animal guy at this point. I've done some other stuff
People
too
are waiting
without.
on that horse.
Yeah. It's funny when you start
Centaurs.
thinking about like who, what, because there's definitely a couple, like there's a prominent giraffe that lives in Woodbrook, who hasn't been given like much feature, but shows up from time to time. And I always like imagine like what there's like such a, there's such a, uh, just a variety of like stuff you could do, but then it also just opens all these other questions of like there's a like if you're familiar with Zootopia, Disney's Zootopia, they very much lean into the size of everybody. And in my
Mhm.
world, it's a sense they're all relatively the same size, even though they could be a little bit smaller, a little bit taller. But but that's very much like a realistic depiction of like, no, they're all literally like as big as the animal would be or whatever. And I didn't want to go that route. And then you're also like, are insects like in on this or no? Or like what animal is Jesus like shown as? Like what are like, what are we gonna like what do we do with this
It's a
stuff?
platypus. It's a platypus. It's gotta be. There is no other right answer. Just saying, Patrick.
Yeah. I'm also a really big Pixies fan though. So like if I was gonna do a monkey, I might do that. I haven't decided yet.
That's a cheat. Like the
That is
only
a cheat.
actual bipedal animal that you put in
This
here
is true.
is a monkey.
They're monkey. Have I
Oh,
done I think I've done monkeys.
I think there's probably some in there,
I think
but
there is. I'll tell you what, one of the hardest things that I do are crowd scenes because I'm just like, all right, what do we? I just have like literally tabs open on my computer of like just looking through all the different animals. They have like a nice variety of whatever, but then I'm also thinking about like where they come from. A lot of them are like woodland, like East Coast animals for the most part. But like I'm
yeah.
also, I'm open to having obviously immigration is fine and well, there's all sort anyway, but I'm like constantly thinking about this sort of thing.
You you have built the most definite world for yourself, my friend. It's
It's sort of a
just like,
curse
oh,
and fun.
predator-prey relationships, would
Yeah.
they stand next to each like, yeah, it's very complicated. It's interesting, though, how many people I've talked to recently who are artists, um, who hate drawing crowds. Like, you think horses, you always hear horse people hate drawing horses, but, like,
Yeah.
crowds has come up more than
Dude,
once in the last month.
crowds are like, it's like such a hard thing because it's a sliding scale of like realism versus abstraction, versus like,
Yeah.
and what's required. So like, and like when I did free for all, like there's tons of crowd stuff, but I mean, like, you get to a point where like, these are all circles. Like, these are all, this is the circles, and it's like the broad color, it's block coloring, and we just got to move on. Like unless it's important. And then if the emotion's important, then we're going to have to, go in closer for a panel that shows that and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me, it would just be the time-consuming element of it because,
Yes.
you've
Yes.
gotta
Yes.
crank
Yes.
out all these pages, and that's a lot of detail.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with Monica and Sam, I'm gonna throw out a speculation here. To be clear, people who are listening, I have zero knowledge of this, okay? Simply speculation, right? But what I'm thinking of is this moves forward is this scenario where I keep coming back and hearkening to the female duos of the time, like Cagney and Lacey or Thelma and Louise, right?
Sure.
So I'm not gonna pin you down here or anything like that. But my brain is saying that Sam and Monica might end up being a duo of killers, and if not,
Oh,
Sam
interesting.
Sam is one ice cold motherfucker. And you'll probably win an Eisner again because of it.
Oh yeah, I don't. Yeah. The well, I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna say one way or the other,
No,
but
yeah, you don't say it. Don't say it. I don't want to be the one
I
that
think
did that.
the the thing that really got me excited about this storyline is the for sure collision of these two. I wanted to make uh Monica somebody who felt like she could hold her own to some regard with Samantha. Um, and so I do appreciate hearing that you could see them teaming up.
Cool. Well, everybody, including myself, will have to wait and see.
Yes.
Well, moving on from murder bears, let's just move things and shift things to a brighter note. Okay, fuck that. No, we're going to talk about free for all.
Yeah.
Recently launched by Oni, this one shot to give everybody kind of a lowdown of what's going on. In the future, the World Finance League exists to benefit all, randomly choosing from those among us who are billionaires and trillionaires of the world and presenting them with a simple choice: donate half their assets to the public good or defend it in ritual combat. So I adore this project.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. So who can't get into that idea of billionaires fighting in 2025? How did you? We're talking about Mike Judge's prescience here. So tell me, Patrick, how did you shake the magic 8 ball and it said free for all needs to come out now?
Oh man, it's so bizarre how the timing worked out because I came up with the idea at the end of 2016 after the election that we all went through in the US. And then I think I wrote most of the script in 2017. I had finished the art by 2020, and I just took my time doing the whole thing in between my regular day job stuff because I wanted to just to have something at some point to show my sequential art for people to take a look at. And so because I was becoming more and more serious about becoming a cartoonist for comics. And
Sure.
and then I never thought anything was going to happen to it until like Beneath the Trees came out. I got some attention from that, and I had free for all on my website. And then Zoop wanted to know if I wanted to publish it using one of their campaigns. And then out of that campaign, Oni saw it and was like, "Hey, what's going to happen with this after you're done with Zoop?" And I was like, "Well, I'm just going to go back on my hard drive." So then they were like, "Well, we would love to give it a home." I was like, "That sounds awesome." And so then the
Yeah.
timing just worked out so that it came out like right in the middle of like Elon Musk and this crazy de facto administration's like,
Chainsaw.
yeah, just all that madness. So like taking a wrecking ball
Yeah.
all these institutions, and like we were and then the book came out, and it was like, and here we have like the richest guy in the world just like destroying all these like federal institutions. You're like, how is this like even a reality right now? And what's wild though is that it doesn't it's just I don't know, man. It's just such a strange time regardless. But to have the weird timing of this book be then, it's like it's just it's so strange. Like you couldn't have imagined it. So the The other thing, though, is that like income inequality is like an ancient problem,
Yep.
and so it's not. So that was kind of it's evergreen, right? And so I guess it's just another example of that. I is the best thing I could think of. It is strange. The timing of it was just incredible, though. It's just so I don't know, man. I wish it wasn't the case, though. Like, believe me, like, wish wish
I
it
don't
was
know.
not
I don't know
prescient.
if I do, Patrick. Because Jesus, man, don't you write anything that's happy?
No, no, I don't. I should, but I don't. Can't.
No, I mean, we write we as artists, obviously, we're just gonna channel what we connect to
Yeah.
and stuff, but, it might give people a window into your personality a
Oh
little
my
wee
god,
bit,
yeah.
just a little bit. Well, everyone, do yourself a favor and pick this up. It's great, for cathartic value alone with what we're all going through, but absolutely worth the price of admission. And I always wrap these things up, Patrick, on a positive note. And I know that's hard to believe given the ground we've tread so far.
There's
But
a
I
lot I
always do
will
a
say this,
shout
there's been a
out.
lot of laughing
Yeah,
in
well,
this.
I mean, you have to. You have to. Like,
Yeah.
how do you deal with all this fucking craziness
Yeah, yeah,
if you
yeah.
don't laugh
You gotta
about it?
have a
Like,
sense of
but
humor, even if it's from the gallows, you gotta have one.
yeah, I don't know. That's always been my form of humor. So, I mean, okay, I was just getting on you. That says a whole lot about me. So, hey, eating popcorn at the guillotine, Patrick, we are brothers. There you go. But anyway, so this is a shout out. This can be somebody who did a kindness for you recently or just something that inspired you. And I'll kind of go first to give you a moment to kind of reflect. Mine is a short YouTube video by Julie Gaultier called Bakelite. And in this, a woman is walking alone on the seafloor. Dancing actually might be more accurate, but she's moving through rhythmically. She comes across an unexpected, seemingly sentient plastic monster. And what ensues is this kind of beautiful underwater choreography that they're doing a bit of a fight scene between the two of them. And it serves to kind of make a statement about the relationship with plastics and the ocean and us and people who are tree huggers like myself who want to get rid of it. So I highly recommend it. For those of you who don't know what Bakelite actually is, it was one of the world's first synthetic plastics. It was designed in 1907. It is still around. Oddly, it's
Mm.
worth money because
Oh,
people are
weird.
weird and fucking strange. So
Sure.
Bakelite jewelry is like an in thing. But
Oh my
anyway, it's
goodness.
a great
Oh my goodness.
great short film, about 6 minutes long. It's great. So what do you got?
Um, oh man. Um, I I need to take a moment to figure this out.
I gave
Um,
you a moment.
I know, but I was listening to your story. It's really good.
It's a really good short film. And I thought you'd like it. This is kind of like up your alley. So I was
It's
like, I'll throw that
100%
one
up
in there
my
for
alley.
Patrick.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, um, you know what? I don't even know if this isn't necessarily, I don't know if this matches or not, but, it was brought to my attention, uh, recently of there's this awesome, like, behind the scenes clip of, how the HBO, intro was made, which was
Oh, okay.
completely analog. Like, there's the famous if anybody's grew up in the '80s and you happen to see HBO, there's a very famous miniatures, like, flying camera flying over the city HBO intro that they would do before movies, especially, like, when it was, like, the big, like, Saturday premiere thing. But
Right.
the actual, like, looking up at the letters HBO and them rotating, and they're, like, metallic, and then there's this crazy, like, starburst that's sort of coming towards us, and then you're inside, and there's a curving light band as you're, like, in the O, and it tells you, like, what you're gonna see. That's all analog. Like, that's not digital. And it was this incredible behind the scenes, like, clip of it. And given the uh, current state of AI, et cetera. And as you can probably tell, like I love analog stuff. I love painting. I love inking on actual paper. It was just a reminder of like, yes, things are problematic to say the least with all of this stuff, but that there's like a superpower in doing, and like and actually knowing the physical world that we're in and being able to manipulate that's like so powerful. And I felt like it was just kind of like it's not. It feels like somehow we're already doomed, and for something nobody asked for. And at the same time, you just take a step back, like it's all still here. Like we can still do amazing things, and we don't have to do anything with the digital world if we don't want to.
Yeah, I think there definitely is a movement in younger people though towards analog and
Yes,
making
yes, there
things with
is.
your
Yeah,
hands. I saw the other day that one of the fastest growing small businesses, like little mom and pop businesses in the US are associated with sewing or quilting or something like that.
yes,
So I don't know. It gives me a little hope anyway.
it does. It does. I guess it's like, yeah, whatever big thing happens, and we all get hit the big reset button. There's definitely hope that life will continue.
I don't know. I'm also a trained anthropologist, so I have this weird duality that is like, okay, we're just monkeys who think we're actually way smarter than we really are. Do
Sure,
we really
sure.
deserve to be the predominant species on this planet when we have things like cetaceans and ants?
Yeah.
But I'm a father, so obviously perpetuity and caring about, I don't know, my progeny and
Yeah.
their progeny in the future
Mhm,
world.
mhm.
So I have this duality at play in my life. So
I feel like the world would be a much better place if everyone did, to be totally frank, Byron.
yeah, I mean, or at least we went back down to manageable, like small groups of people. But we're not going to fix the problems of the world. But anyway, everybody should pick up Patrick's books now that they're all cheery after listening to this and are looking for the Jameson bottles, but, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Rite of Spring is the longest title that I can recall in recent memory and a damn fine book.
Aw, thank you, I
But
appreciate that.
seriously, somehow you managed to pull this off, so in my opinion, it is actually better than the original.
Oh, thank you.
I'm actually yeah, I mean, it was a trick, right? The first one felt very much like a good trick, right? But I love magic, and you watch a magician, you're like, they got that
Sure,
nugget, they
sure,
pulled that
sure.
string. I'm sucked into the concept. I really enjoyed it. I
Yeah,
put it down. I'd be satisfied with that, right? But this as a launch, the departure that it is, I think is really also going to equally pull people right back in. So
I
kudos to
really
you. You
appreciate
pulled
that.
it.
Thank you kindly for saying that. It's definitely, I mean, I'm an artist, and I constantly think everything I do is crap, so, like, you're like you're
As
just
the
kinda like,
artists
"I
do.
don't know, is this man, what am I doing? I'm so close to it, I can't even tell." So I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for saying that.
Oh, totally welcome. Yeah, I've dealt with when I was doing the on the road stuff, it was all backstage stuff. Like I have 0 talent when it comes to singing, playing an instrument or anything like that, and I know better, but I have seen so many people over the years. I guess it's been god 3 decades now, probably, that I've either been a professional artist or worked with professional artists, and the imposter syndrome is always something
Yeah.
that people keep bringing and it kills me. It's not a problem I have with my own work personally, but maybe that's just because I saw so many people struggling
Sure.
with it,
Sure, sure, sure.
but yeah, I'm happy to be your source of, "Hey, man, keep at it. I'll
I
pat you on the
appreciate the
back. You got this,
affirmations.
Patrick."
That's very
No
kind, thank you.
problem. Yeah. Well, Patrick, thanks for coming on with me today and kind of writing the technical difficulties that were inevitable as two people who have worked in show business.
Yes, yeah, 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 happy to do it, I thank you kindly, so glad we could make this happen, and it's been a total pleasure.
Thank you. Well, this is Byron O'Neill, and on behalf of all of us at Comic Book Yeti, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.